I used to believe love could survive anything, even cancer. When the doctors said my husband, Nathan, had stage 3 pancreatic cancer, I didn't hesitate. I sold our house, my car, even my wedding ring. $650,000 gone, but I told myself it was worth it because love was worth any price. He survived, and then, the man I had fought death for looked me in the eye and said, "I want a real woman now." The next morning, divorce papers waited on the kitchen table. He took half of what little I had left and full custody of our children. Now, I live in a $39 a night motel, eating instant noodles and wondering how I became the ghost of the woman who once saved a life. But the night the knock came at 2 a.m., everything changed. The woman outside said, "Nathan was never sick. Emily and I can prove it. My name is Emily Sanders, and 6 months ago, I thought I had it all. A small but successful event planning business, 2 beautiful children, Mason, 12, and Lily, 9, and a husband who'd been my world since college." Nathan Sanders was the kind of man everyone liked. Charming, confident, the steady one. He was an engineer, meticulous, logical, the kind of man who measured twice and cut once, in everything he did. We'd been married for 15 years. 15 years of shared dreams, inside jokes, burnt pancakes on Sunday mornings, and whispered promises under the covers. I believed, truly, that our love was unshakable. I can still remember that morning perfectly, the one that would be our last normal day. Nathan was in the kitchen, reading the newspaper, glasses slipping down his nose. I was packing lunches for the kids, humming some song from the radio. Lily twirled in her pajamas. Mason complained about math homework. It was the kind of chaos that makes a house feel alive. Then Nathan dropped his mug. His hand just trembled, for no reason. Coffee splashed across the floor. "Hey, you okay?" I asked, rushing over. "Yeah," he laughed weakly. "Just dizzy, I guess." He brushed it off, but I noticed the way his skin looked pale. The next day, he came home early from work. "Stomach pain," he said. "Probably stress." I told him to see a doctor, but he waved me off. Nathan was stubborn. He always thought he could fix himself like one of his machines. Weeks passed, and he grew thinner. The dark circles under his eyes deepened. One night, he couldn't finish dinner and went straight to bed. That's when I made the appointment myself. The clinic smelled like antiseptic and fear. I remember sitting in the waiting room, watching Nathan through the glass door while the doctor spoke to him. I couldn't hear what was being said, but I saw the doctor's hand touch his shoulder. Nathan's face fell, then he nodded slowly. When he walked out, his eyes met mine, and I already knew. "Emily?" he said softly, his voice breaking. "It's cancer. Pancreatic. Stage 3. I swear the world stopped spinning for a second. My knees buckled, and I had to grab the edge of a chair to stay upright. He tried to smile, to be strong for me. "We'll fight it. Together." That night, when the kids were asleep, we sat in the dark, holding hands like we could keep each other from falling apart. "I'm scared," I whispered. "So am I," he said. "But if anyone can beat this, it's us." I believed him. God help me, I believed every word. That was before I learned that not every sickness comes from the body. Some come from greed and lies, and the kind of heart that fakes pain just to watch you bleed. The days after Nathan's diagnosis blurred together like a nightmare that wouldn't end. One minute I was a wife planning family vacations and school events. The next, I was sitting in hospital corridors, staring at IV bags and medical charts I didn't understand. The oncologist, Dr. Paul Mercer, was calm, polished, and spoke with the kind of practiced empathy that made you want to believe him. "Pancreatic cancer at this stage is serious," he said, glancing at the file. "But there's a new experimental treatment showing promise. It's costly, around $650,000, but it could give Nathan a real chance." My throat went dry. "We'll pay whatever it takes." Nathan squeezed my hand, eyes full of fear and pride. We can't afford." "We'll find a way," I cut him off. "We always do." That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake beside him, listening to the faint hum of the oxygen machine, staring at the ceiling, calculating numbers in my head. House equity, savings, my car, jewelry, whatever it took. I thought love meant sacrifice. I thought that was what marriage was for. The next morning, I called my parents. My voice trembled as I told them the news. My father was silent for a long time before saying, "Do whatever you have to do, sweetheart. We'll help where we can." My mother just cried softly into the phone. At home, Mason and Lily sensed something was wrong. Mason, always the quiet one, asked, "Is Dad going to die?" I wanted to say no, but the words caught in my throat. "We're going to help him get better," I finally said. "That's what families do." Nathan began treatment the following week. I sat beside him during every session, holding his hand as he winced through the IV drips. He lost weight quickly, his skin turning sallow. He vomited almost daily. Sometimes he'd apologize for being weak, and I'd hush him, whispering, "You're fighting harder than anyone I know." But even as I watched him fade, something inside me hardened a kind of fierce determination. I wouldn't let this disease take him. I'd sell our house, our car, everything we owned if I had to. So I did. Within a month, the realtor's sign stood in our yard. My car disappeared from the driveway. The wedding ring that symbolized 15 years of love glittered under a pawn shop's fluorescent light before vanishing into a small velvet pouch. The first night after we moved into a smaller apartment, Nathan tried to smile. "You didn't have to do all this, Em." "Yes, I did," I said quietly. "You'd do the same for me." He didn't answer. He just looked away, eyes unreadable. I thought it was guilt. I didn't know then that it was calculation. Love had blinded me so completely that I didn't see the truth that the man I was saving was already planning how to destroy me. Bills came like clockwork, thick envelopes stamped urgent, every one a reminder that hope had a price. Every Friday, I'd sit at our small kitchen table, surrounded by papers, receipts, and a calculator that seemed to mock me. Numbers blurred into each other until they stopped meaning anything. The house sold first. I still remember signing the papers, my hand trembling over the last signature. The buyer smiled politely, talking about remodeling the kitchen. I smiled back and nodded, pretending it didn't feel like she was stealing my life brick by brick. We moved into a 2-bedroom apartment near downtown. The walls were thin, the air smelled of cigarettes, but Nathan said, "It's temporary. When I'm healthy again, we'll start over." I believed him. Next went my car, a silver Honda I'd bought the year Lily was born. I cried when I handed over the keys. Then my business. Clients stopped calling when I canceled too many appointments to stay with Nathan during treatment. Within 3 months, Sanders Events was nothing more than a file folder in my drawer. I pawned my jewelry next. The engagement ring was the hardest. The jeweler turned it over in his hand, inspecting it under a bright light. "Beautiful piece," he said. 14,000, maybe 15. "Take it," I whispered. Walking out of that shop felt like leaving behind the last piece of who I used to be. Every dollar went to treatments. Dr. Mercer prescribed new combinations, weekly experimental infusions, imported vitamins, unapproved therapies. "They're working," he said each time, his voice so confident I wanted to believe him. Nathan's hair thinned. His skin grew pale. He vomited after nearly every visit. I cleaned up quietly, whispering encouragements, forcing smiles for the kids. But he began changing in ways I didn't understand. He started spending hours on his phone, locking himself in the bathroom during calls, his tone sharp, impatient. When I asked, he'd snap. "It's work, Emily. Do you want me to just give up everything?" One night, I caught him scrolling through social media photos of women, perfect hair, expensive clothes, flawless smiles. When I confronted him, he shrugged. "Just distractions. Helps me forget how miserable I feel." I told myself he was lashing out from fear, that people facing death said cruel things. When my father offered to lend us 50,000 from his retirement, I refused. "We'll be okay," I lied. Pride, love, and desperation make a dangerous mix. The final thing I sold was my grandmother's piano, an heirloom passed down 3 generations. I'd taught Lily her first song on it. As the movers carried it away, she cried, "Mom, why are they taking it?" "Because Daddy needs it," I said softly. "He's going to get better." That night, after the kids were asleep, I sat beside Nathan as he slept, pale and motionless, tubes running from his arm. I touched his face, my fingertips trembling. "You're going to make it," I whispered. "You have to." He stirred slightly, eyes half open. Promise me something," he murmured. "Anything. If I die, don't waste your life on me. Move on. Find someone strong." The words cut deep, but I kissed his forehead. "You are strong," I said. "You're my husband, my only one." He smiled faintly before drifting back to sleep. I didn't know then that he meant every word, but not in the way I thought. He wasn't preparing me for his death. He was preparing me for his betrayal. The day Dr. Mercer told us Nathan was in remission, I cried so hard I couldn't breathe. "It's a miracle," he said, smiling behind his glasses. "His scans are clear. He's beaten it." Nathan wrapped his arms around me, and for the first time in months, I felt like I could finally exhale. All the sacrifice, the sleepless nights, the endless fear, it was worth it. I'd saved my husband's life. We went home that evening, and I cooked his favorite meal, lasagna, garlic bread, a bottle of wine we'd been saving since our 10th anniversary. The kids danced in the kitchen, laughing again. It felt like sunlight after a long winter, but the warmth didn't last. Within a week, Nathan started acting differently. At first, it was subtle. He shaved more often, began wearing cologne again. He bought new clothes, designer shirts we couldn't afford. When I asked where the money came from, he said, "Don't worry about it, Em. I've got some side projects." Then the late nights began. He'd leave after dinner, saying he needed fresh air, and come home smelling like perfume that wasn't mine. One night, I asked, "Who is she, Nathan?" He looked at me, eyes cold. "You're imagining things." "I'm not stupid," he smirked. "Maybe not stupid, but you sure look pathetic right now." The word pathetic stung more than any slap could have. I tried to hold the family together. I told myself he was traumatized, adjusting after his illness. I told the kids everything was fine, but deep down, I knew something had broken between us, something I couldn't fix. 2 weeks later, I came home from running errands to find suitcases in our bedroom. Nathan was folding shirts neatly, humming under his breath. "What's going on?" I asked, heart pounding. He didn't look up. "I'm leaving, Emily." The world seemed to tilt sideways. "What are you talking about? Leaving for where?" He zipped his bag and finally met my eyes. "You did what you were supposed to do. You kept me alive. But I'm done pretending. I need more than this." "More than what? A wife who sold everything for you? 2 kids who worship you? What more could you possibly want?" He laughed, a low, cruel sound I'd never heard before. "A real woman. Someone who doesn't cry over bills or wear secondhand clothes. Someone who makes me feel alive again." My voice shook. "After everything I did for you? After everything we lost?" He shrugged, as if we were discussing the weather. "You chose that. I didn't ask you to sell the house, Emily. You just did it. Maybe you needed to feel like a martyr." I could barely see through the tears. "Where will you go? With someone who actually makes me feel like a man?" Then he smiled, a cold, heartless smile, and dropped the divorce papers onto the bed. "I'm keeping the kids," he said casually. "You're not stable enough for them. My lawyer agrees." "Your lawyer?" I whispered. He nodded. "Linda Brooks. You'll like her? She's passionate." The realization hit me like a punch. The perfume, the late nights, the new clothes, it was all her. I sank to the floor as he walked out, dragging the suitcase behind him. The door slammed. The next morning, the court notice came: full custody to Nathan. Pending hearing, spousal support requested. I stood there holding the papers, hands trembling. I had given him everything: my money, my love, my faith, and in return, he took my children and my dignity. That night, the apartment felt colder than the hospital ever had. And for the first time, I wondered if the cancer had ever been real. The courthouse smelled like disinfectant and old paper, cold, sterile, and merciless. I sat on the wooden bench outside courtroom 2B, clutching a file folder full of documents that no longer meant anything. Bank statements, medical bills, proof of every sacrifice I had made. My hands trembled, not from fear, but from disbelief that I even had to be there. Nathan arrived looking like a magazine ad, sharp navy suit, polished shoes, a smug half smile. Beside him was Linda Brooks, his lawyer, and his lover. Her red heels clicked confidently on the tile, echoing through the hall like a countdown to my destruction. She didn't look at me once. When the bailiff called our case, I felt my stomach twist. Judge Karen Holloway, a woman in her 50s with tired eyes, presided over the session. She looked from me to Nathan, as if she'd seen this story too many times before. "Mr. Sanders," she began, "your petition requests full custody of the children and spousal support. Is that correct?" "Yes, Your Honor," Nathan said smoothly. "My wife's emotional instability makes her unfit to provide a stable environment. She's been erratic, obsessive, even sold our home without consulting me." I shot to my feet. "That's a lie. I sold everything to pay for your cancer treatments." Linda rose, her tone calm and cutting. "Objection, Your Honor. Medical details are irrelevant to custody. What matters is that Mr. Sanders has maintained financial stability and secured a new residence suitable for the children. Mrs. Sanders, on the other hand, currently lives in temporary housing." The judge's eyes flicked toward me. "Is that true, Mrs. Sanders?" "Yes," I whispered. "But only because I—" "Thank you," the judge interrupted. "Please sit." Every word they spoke chipped away at what little strength I had left. Nathan painted me as hysterical, irresponsible, emotionally unstable, and I had no way to prove otherwise. The lawyer assigned to me by legal aid barely spoke, flipping through her notes with detached politeness. When Mason and Lily were brought in, my heart nearly stopped. Mason wouldn't meet my eyes. Lily clutched her father's hand. The judge leaned forward. "Children, where would you prefer to live?" Mason's voice was small. "Dad's place is bigger. He says Mom needs time to get better." Lily just nodded, eyes glistening. "I want to stay with Daddy." I tried to speak, but no sound came out. The air felt thick, heavy, suffocating. The judge didn't deliberate long. Her gavel came down with finality. "Full custody granted to Mr. Sanders. Mrs. Sanders will have supervised visitation twice a month and pay $400 per month in child support. This court is adjourned." The words echoed like a sentence in a language I didn't want to understand. Nathan stood, buttoned his jacket, and leaned close as he passed me. His whisper burned in my ear. "Thanks for the second chance at life, Emily. Too bad you don't have one." He walked out with my children, his hand on Linda's back. Outside the courthouse, the sky broke open and rain poured down. I didn't move. I just stood there, the papers in my hand dissolving into pulp. By the time I reached the motel that night, I was drenched, hollow, and numb. The mirror above the sink reflected someone I barely recognized, pale, bruised by grief, eyes drained of light, and for the first time since it all began, a single thought screamed through my mind. If he lied about love, what else did he lie about? It was past 2 a.m. when the knock came. 3 sharp raps against the motel door, cutting through the hum of the broken air conditioner. I jolted awake. My first thought was that something had happened to Mason or Lily. My second that maybe Nathan had come to gloat. I hesitated, heart pounding, before whispering, "Who is it?" A woman's voice answered, calm but urgent. "Emily Sanders?" "Yes. My name is Detective Sarah Cole. I need to speak with you. It's about your husband." The mention of Nathan's name made my chest tighten. I cracked the door open just enough to see her mid-40s, trench coat, tired eyes, holding a leather folder. Rain glistened on her hair. She flashed a badge, then said softly, "You might want to sit down." I let her in. The room smelled of stale coffee and despair. She glanced around before lowering herself into the chair by the window. "I'm sorry for coming so late," she began. "But what I'm about to show you, you need to see it before it's too late." "Too late for what?" I asked. "For him to disappear." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean disappear?" She opened the folder and laid a photograph on the table. It was Nathan, healthy, tan, standing beside Dr. Paul Mercer, the same doctor who had diagnosed his cancer. But the picture was dated 18 months before his so-called diagnosis. They were laughing, holding beers, arms around each other like old friends. "I don't understand," I whispered. "They weren't doctor and patient," she said. "They were business partners. Dr. Mercer's clinic was part of a fraud network. He faked medical records, ran false treatment programs, and laundered the payments through offshore accounts. I shook my head. No, no, that can't be true. I saw Nathan sick. I watched him lose weight? Vomit? She nodded. Dr. Mercer prescribed controlled medications designed to mimic cancer symptoms. Extreme nausea, fatigue, hair thinning. Enough to look real, but never life-threatening. The room spun. I pressed a hand to my chest, gasping for air. You're telling me my husband faked cancer? She looked me dead in the eye. Yes, to drain your savings and stage his exit. We have evidence of wire transfers from your joint account to a Cayman Islands fund under Linda Brooks's name. Linda, the lawyer, the other woman. I felt my stomach turn to ice. Detective Cole continued, pulling out a printed email. 2 weeks ago, Nathan booked a one-way flight to Cancun under an alias Daniel Rowe. He planned to leave the country within the next 48 hours. That's why I'm here. Tears blurred my vision. Why are you helping me? Because, she said quietly, you're not the first woman he's done this to. He and Mercer ran similar scams before, but you were the biggest target. Your business assets, the house sale, even your parents' loan. We finally have enough to charge them. I sank onto the edge of the bed, shaking. How long have you known? 6 months. We've been building a case, but we needed you out of contact with him to ensure your safety. When he filed for divorce, it gave us the opening we needed. Now we can move. She stood, handing me a card. FBI Financial Crimes Division will move in tomorrow morning. I need you to come in at 8 a.m. to give a statement. And, Emily, she hesitated. Don't blame yourself. People like him choose their victims carefully, women with big hearts. I stared at the photo again. Nathan's smile in it wasn't the smile of a sick man fighting for his life. It was the grin of a man who knew he'd already won. As she reached the door, I found my voice. Detective Cole, will he go to prison? If justice works the way it should, she said. He'll lose everything he stole and maybe, for the first time, feel what it's like to suffer for real. When the door closed, I sat there alone, clutching the evidence with trembling hands. Outside, the rain beat harder against the glass, like the sky itself was furious for me. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel powerless. I felt angry, furious enough to fight back. Morning came gray and heavy, like the world itself was holding its breath. I barely slept. The detective's words replayed in my mind, every lie, every touch, every I love you Nathan had ever said felt like poison under my skin. At 8 a.m., I walked into the federal building downtown. Detective Sarah Cole met me in the lobby, a coffee in her hand and exhaustion in her eyes. You ready? She asked. I wasn't, but I nodded anyway. She led me to a room filled with agents and files stacked like bricks of truth. Photos of Nathan, Linda Brooks, and Dr. Mercer covered a corkboard. Lines of red string-connected bank accounts, fake medical records, and shell companies. Agent Thompson, from the FBI's Financial Crimes Division, turned to me. Mrs. Sanders, your husband and his associates committed large-scale fraud and money laundering. We'll execute the arrest warrants within the hour, but we need your statement on record before we move. I told them everything from the diagnosis to the bills, to the nights I held him while he cried from pain. Every memory now sounded like a confession I hadn't known I was giving. When I finished, Thompson nodded. That's enough. You've done your part. Detective Cole's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, then looked at me. They're on the move. Nathan and Brooks just checked into the Avalon Suites downtown. He's withdrawing cash before heading to the airport. My pulse spiked. You're going to catch him? She gave a grim smile. We already have. Within minutes, they swarmed the hotel. I stood in the back seat of an unmarked car, watching from across the street as agents poured through the glass doors. A few minutes later, they emerged, Nathan in handcuffs, his face twisted in shock and anger, Linda right behind him. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. When his eyes found mine across the street, he froze. For the first time, I saw fear not of prison, but of exposure, of losing control. I stepped out of the car. Rain soaked my hair, but I didn't care. I walked straight toward him. Emily, he started, voice shaking between charm and panic. Listen to me. This isn't. Don't, I cut him off. Don't you dare say another word. The agent holding his arm looked at me questioningly. I nodded slightly, and he let me speak. I sold my life for you, I said quietly, each word trembling but sharp. I sold our home, my car, my grandmother's piano, all of it. I thought I was saving a man who wanted to live. He smirked, even then. You were saving your conscience. You liked being the savior, didn't you? I laughed, not bitter, just hollow. No, Nathan. I liked being a wife. I liked believing in something real. I took a step closer, my voice low. But now I know the truth. You never wanted to live. You just didn't want to work for anything. He sneered. You'll regret this, Emily. You think they'll give you anything back? You'll still be broke. Maybe, I said. But at least I'll have peace. Something you'll never buy. Agent Thompson signaled the team. Let's go. As they led Nathan and Linda to the black SUV, Linda turned back once, mascara streaking in the rain. He told me you'd given up on him, she said bitterly. I met her gaze. You should have asked why I did it. Then maybe you'd have known what kind of man you were falling for. She looked away. Later that day, I sat in the courtroom again, but this time, the power was on my side. The evidence was irrefutable. Forged medical files, false insurance claims, offshore accounts in Linda's name, signed by Nathan. Dr. Mercer, desperate for a reduced sentence, had already confessed everything. When the judge read the charges fraud, embezzlement, conspiracy, and criminal impersonation, Nathan's composure cracked. He leaned toward his lawyer and hissed something, jaw clenched. I didn't flinch. The judge's voice rang out. Bail denied. Both defendants will remain in federal custody pending trial. Nathan turned to me one last time as they escorted him out. You think you've won, Emily? You've destroyed our children's future. No, I said softly. You did that the day you lied about dying. As he disappeared through the doors, something inside me loosened a knot I hadn't realized I'd been carrying for months. My hands were shaking, but this time not from fear, from release. A few weeks later, the verdict was official. Nathan Sanders, 15 years in federal prison, restitution ordered. Linda Brooks, 12 years, disbarred. Dr. Mercer, 8 years for medical fraud. And me? I stood before the court one last time when the custody hearing reopened. Judge Holloway's tone was gentler this time. Mrs. Sanders, the court acknowledges your innocence in these matters. Full custody of Mason and Lily is hereby restored. My knees almost gave out. Mason rushed into my arms, sobbing. Mom, I'm sorry. I didn't know. I know, baby, I whispered. You don't have to be sorry. Lily wrapped her arms around my waist. Can we go home now? I smiled through tears. Yes, sweetheart. We're going home. Outside the courthouse, the air smelled like rain and new beginnings. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't a victim. I wasn't a wife or a widow of love. I was free. 6 months later, I stood in front of the same courthouse, this time not in tears, but with my head high and the sun on my face. The woman who had walked out of this building before had been hollow, terrified, and broke. Now, I was something else entirely alive. After the trial, the FBI helped recover part of the money Nathan had stolen. Not much, but enough to start over. I rented a small office downtown and reopened my event business under a new name, Phoenix Event Co. The name felt right, born from ashes, rebuilt from ruin. The first client I booked was a woman who whispered across the table, "My husband drained our savings for a fake investment. I don't know how to start again." I smiled gently and said, "I do." Mason and Lily adapted faster than I did. Kids have this incredible ability to heal when given love and truth. They still asked about their father sometimes, especially at night. "Do you hate him, Mom?" Mason asked once, sitting at the kitchen table doing homework. I paused, considering my words carefully. "No," I said finally. "Hate is heavy. I don't want to carry it anymore." Lily looked up from her sketchbook. "But he hurt you." "Yes, he did, but I survived him. And sometimes, surviving someone is the best revenge you can have." They didn't answer, but I saw the relief in their eyes. The fear that once haunted them was gone. Our little apartment was full of laughter again, burnt pancakes on weekends, dance parties while cleaning, and late-night movie marathons. We were healing, one messy, beautiful day at a time. One evening, I found the motel key, room 107, tucked in the back of my purse. I hadn't thrown it away. I hung it on the corkboard in my new office, right above my desk. Whenever a client came in crying, saying they had nothing left, I'd glance at that key and remember, rock bottom wasn't the end. It was the foundation I built my new life on. A few weeks later, Detective Sarah Cole stopped by. She looked healthier, lighter. "Thought you might like to know," she said. "Nathan and Linda were transferred to federal prison in Texas. Mercer's testifying against them in another case. And the rest of your restitution's been approved. It'll take time, but it's coming." I smiled. "You just made my week." She hesitated, then asked, "How are you really doing, Emily?" I looked around at the office flowers on the counter, a calendar full of bookings, my kids' drawings taped to the wall. "I'm not just surviving anymore," I said softly. "I'm living." Before she left, she handed me a small card. "If you ever want to help with other victims, we could use someone like you, someone who's been there." I tucked the card into my pocket. Maybe someday. That night, after putting the kids to bed, I sat by the window, watching city lights shimmer through the rain. I thought about everything I'd lost. My marriage, my home, my faith and love. And then I thought about everything I'd found: truth, peace, and strength I didn't know I had. For so long, I'd believed love was about sacrifice. Now I understood it's about respect, honesty, and choice. I raised my coffee mug to the night sky and whispered, "Here's to new beginnings." Because love didn't destroy me. It rebuilt me, one scar, one truth, one sunrise at a time.